Hello everyone, this is the story of my life. My name is Kang, and I'm a person with yin and yang eyes who can see ghosts. Perhaps that's why I appear a little odd. I was walking down the street that day, as usual, and I looked this way and then the other. People on the street always looked at me with puzzled expressions, but I was used to it. Some people also asked what I was doing, but I couldn't tell them that I was the only one who could see things that others couldn't. Because my vision were different from everyone else's, few people realized that there were countless number of ghosts all around us. The majority of them were unjust ghosts killed by accidents or other reasons. For further information, I am 27 years old and single. I had girlfriends in the past, but we ended up breaking up because of my unique abilities, mostly. And as for the things that only I could see, I'd known them for a long time, so I was not afraid when I happened to see them. I saw and passed by them every day. This ability of mine was not innate. To explain why I have this special ability, it all stemmed from an illness that struck me when I was 17 years old. The illness struck quickly and unexpectedly. My teacher took me to the hospital after I fainted during class. I had a high fever. My doctor examined me numerous times, but my disease had no obvious symptoms. The doctor and my parents were both concerned as a result of this. The high fever lasted a few days and then vanished, but I was still hospitalized for a few days more. Apart from lying in the hospital bed and feeling a little weak, I didn't feel any discomfort in the last few days. I wandered outside in the hallway every day because I was bored in bed. Suddenly, I noticed some strange people walking among the patients. Their surroundings appeared to be shrouded in black smoke, and they all appeared pale and hazy. I'd purposefully walked past these people, but even when they were so close, I couldn't see their faces. What was stranger was that I saw a shadowy figure of a man walking into the wall with my own eyes. I was quite surprised. How could such a thing happen? I couldn't believe what I'd seen. I dashed up to the wall, touched it, knocked on it, and I was certain it was a wall. When I told the doctor about this, he suspected that the prolonged high fever had affected my optic nerve and recommended me to see an ophthalmologist. The doctor told me that I was fine and asked me if I had recently taken any medication. Perhaps the hallucinations you are seeing are due to medication side effects. Your eyes are totally fine, the doctor said. These symptoms caused my hospital discharge to be delayed. I couldn't sleep that night, so I went to the corridor to enjoy the night view. I casted a long glance into the darkness. A strange feeling appeared in me, a feeling that sent chills down my spine, and a little girl was quietly walking past me. This piqued my interest. It was after 11 p.m. It was odd that a little girl appeared in the deserted hallway at this hour, and she appeared hazy. She walked quietly past me, making no sound. The girl walked quietly to a hallway corner, then proceeded to the stairwell that led to the rooftop. This piqued my interest even more, and I sped up to catch up with her and made sure I was correct. That girl walked through that door. I kept following that girl. I was watching her open the door and stepped into the terrace. A fear and anxiety rose in my heart at this moment, and I dashed after her. I was afraid she was in danger, so I took a few more steps up to the roof. Normally, the security guards would lock the door here, but I was not sure why it wasn't locked that time. The light on the terrace was poor, and the area was small. The young girl stood by the terrace railing, and another woman was standing nearby her. A strange woman was holding a child in her arms and speaking to the other child. Even though I was only a few feet away, I could only see her mouth move but not hear what she was saying. She just stood there with lifeless eyes, listening to the other woman telling her something. The little girl climbed onto the balcony railing after the woman said a few words. This unexpected action caused me to break out in a cold sweat. Did the woman incite the young girl to commit suicide by jumping? I was stunned for a moment because she was standing on the railing, which was extremely dangerous. I didn't have time to think about what was going on, so I rushed to stop her. Hey, come down, girl! It's dangerous! She, on the other hand, ignored my words and threw herself down. When I noticed this, I dashed over. I reached out and hugged her just in time. But what I didn't expect was that instead of capturing and holding her in my arms, all I now had was a thin puff of air. I rushed forward so quickly due to inertia that I almost fell from the top of the building. I was scared and my calves constricted. At this point, I suddenly remembered the old woman holding the child, and I forced myself to calm down and look for her. I couldn't see their legs because she was carrying the baby and heading to the door. To be more precise, she and the baby were floating towards the door. When they arrived at the door, she abruptly turned her head and glared at me. Their faces were not human at all, but rather a very creepy, sinewy face. She hugged the child and went inside the door after glaring at me. The door then slammed shut. The nurse came in the next morning while I was still in the room. I asked her about a young girl with long hair who was dressed in hospital clothes. The nurse informed me that there was a little girl in the area where I was staying who looked exactly like what I described, but she was terminally ill and died last night. So what I saw had to be a ghost of the little girl, but what happened to the woman who was holding the child? When I told my parents about the strange things I had seen, they invited Mr. Zhu, a shaman, to come and have a look for me. Mr. Zhu examined my condition before asking me detailed questions about the hazy silhouettes I saw. Mr. Zhu pondered for a moment before telling my father, "This young man has celestial eyes and can see ghosts." My father requested Mr. Zhu to find a solution because his words terrified my parents, and they begged him to find a way to save me. He told me that the woman I saw on the terrace with the other child was looking for a replacement for her child, and that I should hide away. My parents recognized the seriousness of the situation and agreed to let me go to the temple, following what he said. I was at the temple for 7 days before Mr. Zhu and my parents arrived to pick me up. He claimed to have settled the concern of the ghost mother and her baby. He gave me a pair of sunglasses that he claimed he custom made. I couldn't see those things anymore because I was wearing these sunglasses. I used to wear them every day, but now I took them off every now and then to see the spiritual world. Only I could see that world, the world of souls. It should be noted that since I had this ability, I was also concerned about random things. I was following a ghost on that particular day. I was not sure why the police station attracted so many ghosts. Of course, in order to see those ghosts, I had to remove these glasses. Today was the 30th day since I passed by here for the first time and saw the ghost of a girl standing still. I tried to find out what she was up to out of curiosity. Everything was motivated by curiosity, but it could also be a fateful arrangement. I was still speculating about her motives when someone behind tapped me on the shoulder and asked, "What are you doing here?" "I've been noticing you for a few days. Why are you snooping in front of the police station?" "Do you have a problem?" said the police officer. I replied, "Nothing," because I didn't want to reveal anything about myself to the others, nor did I want to cause trouble for myself, so I rushed out of there. I initially observed her for a few days just to satisfy my curiosity, but I abandoned this plan due to the appearance of the police. So I purposefully accompanied her when she left. The intention was to get a good look at her. The first thing that came to my mind was that she had been murdered by someone. There was a wound on the side of her head. Perhaps she wanted to go to the police station and ask for help because she died unjustly. I was not sure if the cop noticed my odd expression, but I quickly left. Then one day, as I was walking home, I noticed the same police officer smoking a cigarette beneath my house. He'd been waiting for me. It was not difficult for a cop to figure out where I live. He saw me, held a cigarette in his hand, took a few puffs, and then extinguished the cigarette with his foot. He approached me and called me out by name. "Hello, Mr. Kang. My name is Jiro. I have a few questions for you." I knew why he came here, but I didn't want to bother myself with it, so I ignored him. I admired his foresight. He might discover that I'd been loitering in front of the police station for 3 days and detected the information about me. I still ignored him and went upstairs, but he asked if I could assist him. It turned out that he was aware of the history of the glasses I was wearing. I asked him whether, as a cop, he believed in ghosts or not. "I've learned about these things, and I'm aware of the effect of the glasses you're wearing, of course. I believe there are ghosts in this world," he said. When I heard that, I quickly invited him in. When I politely invited him in to sit and pour him a glass of water, he stopped circling and went straight to the point. He inquired as to what I saw in front of the police station. His voice seemed to recognize what I was seeing, and he really figured out why I always wore sunglasses. He claimed that I wore sunglasses to avoid staring at those things. He stated that he had previously communicated with people who possessed such special abilities, and he witnessed my reaction. I was not sure if he actually met or if he said it to relieve my stress. I hesitated before telling him the truth. My eyes were distinct from those of others. I removed my sunglasses and informed him that I could see ghosts. He didn't seem surprised, but just sat there and listened to what I had to say. I told him about how I saw the female ghost 3 days ago standing in front of the police station. When I was finished, he abruptly stood up and asked me to accompany him to the police station. He wanted me to investigate whether a victim who went missing last week was her. So in order to assist the police, I immediately agreed. However, I doubted why a police officer would place such a high level of trust in me. Still, there was the ghost. I walked past her and went into the police station. When I arrived, I was surprised to know that the police officer appeared young but was a superior here. He led me into his office, turned on the computer and looked up something. I had a look in it. They were all previously reported missing people. He opened a page of young girls and asked if there were any girls who looked like the girl standing at the gate. He thought the girl I saw had something to do with the case, as I suspected. I quickly recalled the girl's appearance and compared it to the list. Just then I noticed one of the missing girls standing at the door. I simply showed him. "Are you certain it's this girl? Her family reported her missing a week ago," he said. Then he asked if I could communicate with ghosts. Actually, I've been attempting this for quite some time. I could only see them but couldn't communicate with them. Then Police Officer Jiro approached me and asked if the girl was still present. I removed my sunglasses and noticed the girl standing in front of him. I purposefully lowered my voice and informed him that he and the girl were almost face to face. As a result, he was both surprised and concerned. But he quickly calmed down and asked me to describe the little girl to him. I was a little scared because the girl's appearance was a little frightening, but I took a step closer and looked at her. And when I told him what I saw, he took a notebook and jotted it all down. In addition to the large dent on the girl's forehead, a string was also attached to the girl's wrist. He repeated every sentence I said and wrote it down on his notebook. The girl's feet were caked in mud. I took a good look at the girl and told him everything I saw. Her clothes had some weeds on them. I was about to put my glasses on when I noticed that the girl's clothes were stained with a lot of water. I was worried that something might be missing, so I double-checked to be sure before putting on my glasses. Sunken brow, calloused wrists, muddied hands and feet, a water fern stuck in her body. The cop looked at the notebook, mumbled something about the clues, and then abruptly turned around and told me to get into the car and follow him to visit some place. The clues found from the ghost indicated that I could tell she had been murdered, and I wanted to help her, so I got into the police car. He drove me to a nearby river and dropped me off. He took some mud for me to compare to the mud on the body. When he brought some water ferns up for me to look at, the color and shape of the water ferns reminded me of the ones on the girl's body. He made a call and requested some people be dispatched to this river area following my confirmation. Soon after, a large number of police cars arrived and the cops stretched the ropes all over the place. There was also a group of men in diving suits joining the investigation. After some time, the rescue team extracted a woman's body from under the water, and the appearance of the dead woman's corpse matched exactly what I had seen. Her forehead had a deep dent. Her hands were shackled with a rope. A week later, police officer Jiro invited me to dinner. He thanked me for assisting him in solving the case, but he didn't say much about it other than it was a robbery. I was overjoyed at the time, perhaps because I had helped that girl and because the police had placed their trust in me. That day I felt very at ease and talked a lot with him. He requested that I remove my sunglasses. Perhaps because he drank too much, he lost his old solemn expression and said, "Your sunglasses look weird." I removed my sunglasses. Honestly, it gave me the impression that the food was all the same color and no longer tasty. But as soon as I removed my glasses, I noticed something. Jiro asked me sensitively if I had seen anything. He followed my gaze to the table that was empty. With a curious tone in his voice, he inquired as to what was wrong with that empty chair over there. I assured him that everything was fine because I was wearing sunglasses and wasn't used to taking them off. And I kept talking to him. I just wanted to have a casual meal with my police officer friend in the most natural way possible. After I finished my meal, I decided to look into the strange ghost I had seen in the dinner on my own. I noticed a ghost walking down a dark alley. I may have noticed him because he was different from the other things I saw. His entire body was as black as ink, like coal. I was guessing he died in a fire. He wandered around the narrow alley for a while before turning around and walking down the street. I could see him, but he couldn't see me because he was just passing by me. I could detect a burning odor emanating from the ghost person. I occasionally followed something because I was curious to see what they would do. Every day I continued to pursue him. He strolled down the commercial street to a restaurant and stopped. He just stood there for half an hour looking inside the restaurant before turning around and walking over to the restaurant across the street. I had no idea what he wanted to do until he suddenly bursted out in flames. Yes, he stood in front of the restaurant and it spontaneously exploded on fire, but no one knew. The fire on the ghost's body grew stronger and stronger when he hit the wall with his hand, which slowly burned. When two people ran out of the restaurant, I was about to rush to their aid. They were terrified when they saw the burning wall. They took some water buckets from the restaurant and attempted to stop the fire. The fire had been extinguished, and the man in the apron wiped the water from his clothes, saying something that this was not the first time a fire had occurred. The other man said nothing, but the ghost stood behind him, holding out his burning hand towards them. However, the ghost's hand passed directly through the man's body, causing no harm to him. Unsure if he could feel anything, he turned his head to look behind him. He turned his head and saw nothing, but instead stared right at me. Then I noticed him removing an amulet from his neck. The amulet appeared to have a different effect, causing the ghost to vanish quickly. The both of them walked into the restaurant. I looked over to the restaurant across the street, thinking there might be some information about him. I went into the restaurant, perhaps because it was too late. There were no customers and only the old owner was cleaning.
"Hello, please sit down. What would you like to eat?"
said the elderly owner. I was really hungry, so I ordered a bowl of noodles right away. Then he held into the kitchen and asked for a bowl of noodles for me. I took advantage of the time when the noodles hadn't been ready yet by finding a topic to discuss with the boss. During our conversation, the owner mentioned that there was someone who had burned to death in this restaurant, so he purchased it for a very low price. He also told me about what had happened in this restaurant previously. He said that the previous owner had a family of 3 and his cooking skills were also very good. Everything was going fine, but then something tragic happened. A large fire broke out one night after the entire family had gone to bed. The fire was so intense that all 3 members of the family were unable to escape in time and were burned to death. Because the shop had a dead person, no one dared to rent it back for a long time, and it was eventually abandoned. Later he rented it. He was not superstitious about haunted houses, and despite doing well, the restaurant across the street always caused trouble to them. After hearing the boss's story, I picked up the phone and dialed. I'd like to report this incident and seek assistance from the police officer Jiro. This case had previously been handled by Jiro, and the final conclusion at the time was that the restaurant was careless and thus the fire occurred. John was the owner of the restaurant across the street. Officer Jiro summoned John after hearing my accusations, but he insisted that he was not involved. When Jiro informed me that there was insufficient evidence to convict him, he asked if there was any way to deal with the ghost. At that moment, I was thinking of Mr. Zhu, who gave me a special pair of glasses. I called Mr. Zhu with Police Officer Jiro's approval. After hearing what I had to say, Mr. Zhu agreed to assist. I asked him to meet me at the back of the police station, and he handed me something to give to the police officer Jiro. It was an amulet box. Police Jiro had no doubts about Mr. Zhu's claims, despite the fact that Jiro's words were not good to do so, but his face was filled with excitement. Jiro entered the station and I joined Mr. Zhu behind the building. Mr. Zhu was waiting there. We were not far from the interrogation room. Mr. Zhu asked me to step aside. He was holding something between his 2 index fingers. Then he drew a talisman on the wall and declared that he would allow the ghost to enter. Mr. Zhu then told me to ask the policeman Jiro to get the amulet that was around Yun's neck after he drew the symbol. I went to the interrogation room and told Jiro about Mr. Zhu's words. Jiro entered the interrogation room and asked Yun a few questions about the amulet he was wearing. "God can't help you if you do anything that harms other people," said Police Officer Jiro. During his speech, he examined the amulet Yun was wearing on his hand. Mr. Zhu had smeared a kind of drug on Jiro's hand. After the interrogation, Jiro made John think twice about declaring truthfully. Then Jiro walked out. Jiro and I stood outside the interrogation room awaiting the outcome. Following that, a ghost appeared behind John, and it was the burning ghost. John noticed that ghost was behind him and he appeared terrified. But he had nowhere to go, so he could only let the fire consume him. Yun cried out in agony as he was surrounded by flames. It took less than a minute for the man to scream for help at the door, declaring that he was going to confess everything that he had done, everything, and that he had set the family on fire. I got the desired result. Police Officer Jiro returned to the interrogation room and I called Mr. Zhu and told him everything was fine. Officer Jiro looked at me before entering the door and asked me to accompany Mr. Zhu. Mr. Zhu was waiting behind the building when I returned and asked how everything was going. I assured him that everything was fine. I gave a brief explanation of what had occurred, and seeing some ash-like debris floating in front of me, I knew Mr. Zhu helped release the ghost. He told me he was going where he needed to go, then returned and invited me to his house. When he heard that I had helped a female ghost in a case, he said it was an action of virtue. Punishing the crime, he hoped that I would be able to use my abilities to help more people.